Hey everybody, Bill Sieglein with CISO Executive Network here with Kevin Tian from Doppel, founder and CEO. And so exciting. We ran into you. I think I met you through a member out at Black Hat in your little private space in the back there. I was overwhelmed with how cool the technology is. Very thoughtful way that you approached it, and your background's very interesting. So we can certainly bring that up when you introduce yourself here. And then I'll ask you a couple questions. So, Kevin, just introduce yourself to our members here. What was your background? And then kind of what inspired you to even get into this space?
Thank you, Bill. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. Super excited to be here. So yeah, Kevin, co-founder, CEO of Doppel. The quick answer to the personal background question, right? Before all this, I was actually a software engineer at Uber and Lyft, working on dispatch systems and flying cars. So a little bit of a different world than cybersecurity, but it's where I got to meet my co-founder and a lot of our founding engineering team. And ultimately, I think it's what makes us a little bit different and unique in our space. And so, that's a quick context on our personal background.
Yeah, so clearly you saw some gap. I mean, it's a space with nearly 5,000 vendors, 5,001, a new one was just created a moment ago in Israel, right? So, um, what inspired you to go into this space, having come from the software engineering background, and what inspired you to fill a gap? What gap was that you filled?
Yeah, I mean, I think, just more broadly, why cybersecurity, right? And how did we get into security? It's a couple things. One, I think, mission's always important, right? And, with cybersecurity, it's a very clear mission. There's a lot of bad guys out there trying to do bad stuff to, businesses, their consumers, their, stakeholders in general, right? And it's a very clear mission on what can we do to stop this and protect people. And so, our mission at Doppel, right, is defend against all digital deception. And, ultimately, we're building the platform for social engineering defense and cybersecurity. From a software engineering perspective, the second appealing part about the cybersecurity space is there's just a lot of, what we would argue are unsolved problems in security, specifically around scalability, specifically around, automation, and also just the fact that it is an adversarial environment, right? So there's always something new that you got to solve from a security perspective. And so, as a software engineer and as a builder, that gets us very excited in terms of always having a problem space where you can just continue to build.
Yeah. So, given that, what makes your solution unique or your approach unique, given that there are 5,000 vendors? Why Doppel? Why now?
Yeah. So let me first go a little bit deeper into Doppel and then explain why
Yeah,
it's unique, right?
great
So
idea.
so Doppel, how we position ourselves again is we want to solve all things social engineering. It's still the number one cause of a breach by an order of magnitude, right? It's not a cloud vulnerability. It's not supply chain necessarily, right? But it's really social engineering that's still the number one source of a breach for companies. And I think, as vendors, at least from what I've seen, no one has really truly solved this space because there's no one silver bullet solution for social
Right.
engineering, right? But it is a space though where there's a lot of different vectors, and that's what gets us excited and keeps us up at night, right? Is how do we solve these sorts of problems? So, our core products are in, today in the brand protection and executive protection space. So historically, areas around, monitoring and takedowns of, external threats. And what makes us different is really two core things. One is our approach to the space where, we believe that, hey, if I'm scattered spider today and I'm targeting, your organization, for example, CISO ExecNet, I'm not just doing the traditional type of squatted domains and phishing emails, but I'm going to call Bill with, deepfake phishing campaigns. I'll have hyper-personalized SMS campaigns. Maybe I'll set up some fake personas on LinkedIn representing CISO ExecNet and things like that, right? And so the fact that this is now a multi-vector problem means you need multi-vector solutions, which means domain monitoring and takedowns is not a sufficient brand protection solution. You need a platform that could scale across all these different vectors. And ultimately, that's the platform play for us is to build out that social engineering threat graph and use that data platform to then build additional products and can go down that road as well in terms of what our roadmap is. The second thing that really differentiates us, though, is not just how does AI change the game from a threat landscape perspective, which we believe it does in terms of making the problem multi-vector, but how does it also change the game from a solution perspective? And from a solution perspective, AI is critical to how we scale things at Doppel. So OpenAI actually just did a presentation of Doppel's technology in a recent demo day. And, as far as we have seen in this space, we're one of the only companies in the world right now that has autonomous AI SOC agents running in production in real time, 24/7, 365. So,
Congrats on that, by the way.
yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. And so it's, we're really on the cutting edge of history where, and we're always transparent about this too. We of course still do have humans in the loop, but what we've found is a lot of our tier one tasks can now be automated with LLMs. Humans will come in for the tier two, tier three stuff, and we're constantly benchmarking with each new LLM release to see how much better it can get, to see if it can potentially start doing tier two tasks, tier three. As of today, it's mostly the tier one work, and that's another key differentiator about Doppel is how we've built an AI native platform, and we've built a great hybrid fusion of AI plus threat hunting and takedown experts in our global SOC.
That's brilliant. I mean, a great use of AI. I was just talking with my counterpart, Andy Land, about a summary of what we did this year and what we saw from members. And of course, AI, we call it friend or foe, right?
Right.
There's a great side of it. We incorporate into solutions like yours. We just have to be half a step ahead of the bad guys who, at the moment, seem to have an edge on us. But it's great that you're incorporating it so extensively, which sort of is actually one of the questions, and we'll get to that a little later. You can dive a little deeper. But what's interesting is I'm always curious, how do you cut through the noise in the
Right.
market with so many companies saying they solve so many problems? You seem to be pretty niche and specific about what you solve, which I like, and I think that's
Yeah.
important. How do you cut through the noise?
Yeah, I mean, I think that market positioning is always critical, right? Like, what are the things that we're going to be good at, and what are the things that we're just not going to touch, right? And for us, of course, platform plays, a big, buzzword right now in security, right? You've seen, the 800-pound gorillas on the endpoint space, or, Wiz right now is the hottest thing on the cloud side, right? And, firewall, of course, Palo Alto has been that giant for a while now. But how we are positioning ourselves is we don't yet see a CrowdStrike for social engineering, right?
Mhm.
And that's where we want to be.
Right.
So we've made it very explicit around where we're positioning ourselves, what are our unique technical advantages, which is really building that data, autonomous learning platform around all things social engineering. And so right now, for example, we've got indicators and threat intel that no one else has because traditional threat intel vendors, of course, focus on domains, IP addresses, URLs. We've got telephone numbers in our system. We've got fake personas on social media in our system. And so with that sort of, spider threat graph that we have, that is what enables us to really position ourselves as that social engineering platform and then build additional products onto, for example, things around email detection or, things around simulation and red teaming and things like that, just because we're so deep into the TTPs of what these threat actors are doing today.
That is really unique. Even more excited now that you guys have come and spoken at a few of our roundtables
Yeah.
as things evolve and how quickly your solution's evolving, which leads me to this question of a case study. Certainly without mentioning a client name, they don't typically
Yep.
like that. But is there a case recently where you go, we were introduced to a company, we came in, brought the top technology in, and they gained this better insight, they were faster to respond, whatever it was.
Yeah, there's a couple actually common case studies here that we've seen across different sectors now. So it was the exact same case study that happened with a top three airline company, a top three healthcare company, and a top three oil and gas. We came in and deployed Doppel, and then just within the span of a couple days, we're able to showcase two unique value props right out of the gate. One was visibility into the entire, social engineering threat campaigns that were targeting their organizations and their customers. Basically, again, not just showing them, the traditional type of squad domains that would be targeting their particular brand, but then link that to entire telephone network infrastructure, social media infrastructure, and paid ads infrastructure that they had never seen before holistically. They'd seen through ad hoc customer fraud reports and things like that. But basically, what our technology does is we take that and auto pivot and auto link that threat actor infrastructure across all these modalities. And then two, then being able to really take things down at the source, right? Because we're able to map out that entire infrastructure, we can now say, hey, we're not just taking down a specific phone number, we're not just taking down a specific domain, but maybe we're taking down the C2 server behind all this sort of stuff, or now we're able to collect a whole bunch of evidence to provide to a telecom provider that, hey, it's almost like a botnet of telephone numbers here, right? That we can just totally remove. So those are the two, quick value props that will showcase quickly in, those case studies for those large enterprises.
Yeah, that's really unique. You must be developing great relationships with some of these social media product companies, the large telcos, and probably even law enforcement, I would think.
Yeah, and I mean that's some of the, kind of bread and butter work of what we have to do at Doppel, and in terms of eating our vegetables every day is, hey, we need to constantly be building relationships with different providers. We have some, structural advantages because again, of our founder background, a lot of our team does come from the social media companies and large consumer tech companies from an engineering perspective. So that's given us, a structural advantage to building a lot of these relationships. But it's not just, building relationships where we already know people, but also, new vectors, right? Like telecom companies where historically there hasn't been as much relationship building before.
So you mentioned AI earlier, and it's a key component of your solution. Was it always intended to be, or did it sort of evolve that, wow, AI has really hit the scene hard, we should take full advantage of it? I'm curious how you incorporated AI.
Yeah. So original intention was always to be an AI native company, right? And I think it's a big reason why Rahul and I even started company was, recognizing like Rahul is actually roommates with the OpenAI researchers who are developing ChatGPT. So he saw kind of, a little bit of a sneak preview before it came out to the public, and recognizing how pivotal it was going to be in terms of technology. That was always an intention at Doppel is how do we build for this new world, both thinking about what that means in terms of, threat implications, but also in terms of what we can build technology wise. I will say though, right, of course, there's always a lot of buzzword and hype when these new things launch. And
Right.
initially it wasn't good enough to be autonomous yet, right? Like very much a lot of the AI work we had initially was more in co-pilot mode, right? Rather than, autonomously making decisions, it was more helping streamline, workflows that analysts were doing. And like I said, every time a new model gets released, we benchmark that. We see, hey, how does this compare to, what, our experts are already able to do. And so it's been, really, it's been really eye-opening to see how quickly these models are improving over time. Just from, literally 2 years ago, right, is when ChatGPT came out, the
Right.
first version, and then to where we are today with, models that can do deeper reasoning from multiple companies now.
Yeah, well, good for you for taking that stance early on and agreeing that that would be the base of your solution. So I think members will find that pretty impressive. Well, we come to our last question. It's one of my favorites, and that is, you have a peer in the industry. He or she comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm thinking about starting a cybersecurity company."
Yeah.
Maybe you say, "Hey, you should think about something else," or so what's your advice, right? You should have been you should have cut lawns for a living, right? Um,
Yeah, yeah.
what's your advice for these aspiring cybersecurity companies that want to get started and go get some venture funding?
Yeah. I mean, I would say my answer is certainly not don't do it. I think it's do it, right? Because there are so many, interesting security problems in the world, and, not necessarily a bunch of great solutions yet, at least in terms of, maybe there's like great point solutions and things like that, but again, it's really all about the delivery to the customer. So, my second quick follow-up answer there would be, that's really the key thing is listening to the customer and, working very closely with customers. I know it's a little bit of a cliche, but, from what we've seen in terms of, our success and, other companies that have been successful as cybersecurity startups, we all have competitors, right? Like you said at the beginning of this interview, there's a whole bunch of companies in the space. What I've seen in terms of who wins is the people who really do stay close to customers, which means, they ship product faster to these customers. They spend more time just from a go-to-market perspective, either in person or on calls. They basically are just shortening feedback loops between the people who are, using the product and ultimately benefit from the product and the people who are building the product. And so I think that's you know whether you talk about Wiz, of course, is right now one of the hottest ones in the cybersecurity space, or some of the many other rising stars. That's what we've noticed has been the success formula so far.
Yeah. And you're among good company. Yeah, in the whole interview series I've done here with your peers in the sector, almost to the T have said, always understand the customer requirement. Spend time with the customers, the people that will ultimately buy your product. And once they buy it, stay close to them. Figure out how
Stay
can you
close even after buying. Yep,
right.
absolutely.
Good for you. Well, we're so excited here at CISO ExecNet about your success. You're on an upward trajectory. We think it's fantastic. We're excited that you chose to use us as a means to get to the CISO community, and we'll do more with you in 2025. Great interview. Thank you so much for your time, Kevin Tian at Doppel. Please go visit them. Members will be reaching out to you. Thanks for this time today, Kevin. Have a great rest of your day and good holiday season.
Yeah, thank you, Bill, for having me, and happy holidays to you as well.